There is a special kind of heartbreak that does not begin with betrayal, shouting, or a final goodbye. It begins with silence, with delayed replies, with a warm person suddenly becoming difficult to reach, with a love that was glowing yesterday and feels cold today. The strangest part is that sometimes these people do not disappear because they stop caring. They disappear because they started caring too much. Some zodiac signs know how to flirt, pursue, confess, and create emotional fireworks with breathtaking ease. They can make you feel chosen, adored, and seen in a way that becomes addictive. But the moment the bond stops being light and starts becoming real, something inside them trembles. Suddenly, feelings are no longer a beautiful game. They are weight, responsibility, vulnerability, risk. And not every heart knows how to hold that kind of intensity without trying to run from it. There are signs who can survive chaos, passion, jealousy, and obsession but freeze the moment they realize this could become serious. Not because they are cruel, not because they are fake, but because deep down, love touches their most fragile place. It asks them to be honest, to stay, to let someone see the parts of them they usually protect with charm, distance, humor, or mystery. And that is when their disappearing act begins. They do not always leave dramatically. Some become too busy. Some start replying with one dry sentence where there used to be paragraphs. Some suddenly need space without being able to explain why. Some watch your stories, like your photos, think about you constantly and still refuse to step toward you. They do not break connection all at once. They dim it, slowly, quietly, confusingly, like people trying to escape a fire that is actually their own heart-catching light. In this horoscope, we are talking about the 5 zodiac signs most likely to ghost, withdraw, vanish emotionally, or become painfully inconsistent when feelings become too deep to control. These are not the signs that do not feel. These are the signs that feel so much, so chaotically, so overwhelmingly, that when love starts asking for something real, they panic. They pull away to breathe, to think, to protect themselves from becoming dependent, vulnerable, exposed, or broken. And yet there is a secret hidden inside their silence. Many of them still want the relationship. Many of them hope you will understand what even they cannot explain. The tragedy is not that they feel nothing. The tragedy is that they feel too much and do not know how to carry it with grace. So who are these signs? Who starts ignoring the very person they secretly want the most? Who creates distance when they are already halfway in love? And how do you respond without destroying the fragile thread still connecting you? Let's step into the emotional shadows and begin with the signs who would rather disappear for a while than admit that you are becoming important. Gemini. Gemini does not usually look like someone who would ghost when things get serious. At first, they are dazzling, quick-witted, magnetic, playful, impossible to predict. They know how to make a conversation feel like a spark jumping through the dark. With Gemini, love often begins with excitement, hours of texting, jokes only the two of you understand, random confessions at midnight, a constant feeling that something alive and electric is growing between you. And then, just when you begin to believe this is becoming something real, they drift. The truth is that Gemini often ghosts not because they are bored, but because seriousness makes them feel trapped inside emotions they cannot immediately organize. This sign lives through the mind first. They need space to process what they feel, and when feelings become too intense, they can become restless, scattered, and strangely avoidant. One part of them wants closeness. Another part starts whispering, "What if this changes everything? What if I lose myself? What if I promise too much and cannot keep being this version of me forever?" Gemini may adore you deeply and still disappear for 3 days because being needed too much too fast makes their nervous system feel crowded. Their ignoring style is rarely dramatic. Gemini tends to fade rather than slam the door. They answer later, then shorter, then with less warmth. They may keep the connection technically alive while emotionally going half invisible. They still watch, still think, still circle back unexpectedly, but they stop giving you the consistent emotional reassurance you crave. This is what makes them so confusing. They do not fully leave, yet they stop fully showing up. Can this be handled? Yes, but only if you understand what not to do. Pressure suffocates Gemini. Demands like "explain yourself right now" or "tell me exactly what this means" can make them retreat even more. They need emotional space that does not feel like punishment. The best reaction is calm clarity, not chasing, not cold revenge, not dramatic ultimatums too early. Let them feel that closeness with you does not equal captivity. Speak honestly, but lightly. Say what you feel without making them feel cornered. Gemini returns more easily to warmth when they sense that love is still breathable. If you are dealing with a withdrawing Gemini, the key is not to become louder than their fear. Be steady, be intelligent, be emotionally self-respecting. Show them you are not trying to own them, only understand them. When Gemini feels that a relationship can remain alive, curious, and spacious even as it becomes serious, they often come back with more sincerity than before. Their silence is not always rejection. Sometimes it is a badly translated love language spoken by someone terrified that deep feeling might lock every door behind them. Sagittarius. Sagittarius is one of the most misunderstood emotional escape artists in the zodiac. People assume they ghost because they are careless, freedom-obsessed, or allergic to commitment. But the deeper truth is more complicated and more painful. Sagittarius can love with enormous warmth. They can make you feel chosen by destiny itself. They bring laughter, intensity, honesty, wild chemistry, and a sense that life is suddenly bigger because they are in it. But when the relationship begins to require emotional grounding, consistency, and real accountability, something inside them starts galloping toward the nearest exit. Why? Because Sagittarius fears emotional suffocation more than heartbreak. The moment love begins to feel heavy, controlling, overly defined, or emotionally loaded with expectations, they can start pulling away even from someone they genuinely care about. This sign wants love to feel like a horizon, not a cage. Even if you are not trying to control them, they may interpret seriousness as the end of spontaneity, the end of possibility, the end of their freedom to move, dream, and breathe on their own terms. Their way of ignoring can feel especially cruel because it often happens after a period of intense closeness. Sagittarius may be all in one week and mysteriously distant the next. They stop initiating. They become vague about plans. They suddenly need time to think, but offer no useful explanation. They may disappear into work, travel, hobbies, or philosophical distraction. Instead of discussing the emotional shift directly, they act as if distance will solve the problem for them. It rarely does, but in the moment, avoidance feels easier than admitting they are scared. The worst thing you can do with a withdrawing Sagittarius is tighten your grip. Chasing, interrogating, or emotionally cornering them can make them run faster. They do not respond well to intensity that feels like emotional capture. But that does not mean you must become passive or accept breadcrumbs. The smartest way to react is with dignity and openness. Let them know you notice the distance. Say it simply. No emotional ambush. No desperate pleading. Give them room to approach, but not a free pass to disappear forever. Sagittarius respects people who are strong enough not to cling. Aquarius. Aquarius can be the coldest disappearing act of them all, not because they are heartless, but because they are masters at turning emotional overwhelm into distance so clean it almost looks deliberate. This sign can care about you more than they admit, think about you constantly, replay every conversation in private, and still behave as if nothing enormous is happening between you. Aquarius is often deeply affected by love, but they hate losing control of themselves inside it. The moment emotions begin to threaten their inner independence, their logic rises like a wall. At first, Aquarius can be intoxicating. They make you feel mentally seen. They draw you in with originality, wit, strange honesty, and a kind of emotional mystery that becomes irresistible. With them, connection feels rare, different, faded in a way that does not look obvious from the outside. But when the relationship reaches a deeper threshold, when feelings need naming, when intimacy starts becoming undeniable, when vulnerability asks them to stop hovering above their emotions and actually enter them, Aquarius may vanish into detachment. They often ignore in a very specific way. They become emotionally unavailable while still remaining symbolically present. They may still react to your posts, send a random meme, ask an unexpected question, or reappear with intellectual conversation while avoiding the actual emotional issue completely. This is classic Aquarius behavior when scared. They create enough contact to keep the thread alive, but not enough intimacy to fully risk themselves. It can make the other person feel half loved, half frozen, and completely exhausted. Would pressing them help? Almost never. Aquarius resists emotional force. The moment they feel that someone is trying to drag feelings out of them before they are ready, they become even more distant. But complete silence is not the answer either. They need a partner who can name what is happening without emotional chaos. Someone who can say, I feel the distance. I care about you. I am open to this. but I need honesty, and then step back with self-respect. Aquarius responds better to emotional intelligence than emotional pressure. Pisces. Pisces is one of the most heartbreaking signs on this list, because when they start ignoring you, it often looks like indifference, but in reality, it is emotional flooding. Pisces does not always run from love because they do not care. They run because they care so much that the feeling becomes too big for their inner world to hold. This is a sign that does not just experience love, they dissolve into it. They imagine futures too early, feel tiny changes in tone too deeply, romanticize silence, fear rejection before it happens, and carry emotional currents that nobody around them can fully see. When things get serious, Pisces can begin to disappear not because they want less of you, but because being close to you suddenly feels dangerously powerful. At the beginning, Pisces often creates a dream. They are tender, attentive, soulful, magnetic in a quiet way. They make you feel that the connection is rare, spiritual, almost written somewhere long before you met. They can look at you in a way that makes the whole world feel softer. But the closer they get, the more exposed they feel. Serious love threatens to reveal all their softest places, their fear of abandonment, their fear of not being enough, their fear of giving everything and then being left with nothing but memories and music. And when that fear rises, Pisces may not confront it openly. They retreat into mist. Their ignoring is subtle, emotional, and deeply confusing. Pisces may not disappear with a slam of the door. Instead, they start floating further away. They answer with sweetness but less presence. They say they are tired, overwhelmed, confused, or going through a lot. They may still care, still ache, still think about you at night, but they stop being reachable in a real way. Sometimes they hide behind vagueness because they cannot bear the idea of disappointing you with the truth that your importance in their life has made them scared. The key with Pisces is not to chase the disappearing version of them. Speak to the deeper one, the one behind the silence, the one who is not playing games, but drowning a little in feelings they never learned to regulate. Pisces can continue a relationship after ghosting, but only when they stop treating emotion like a storm that must be hidden until it passes. Their silence is often a veil, not a verdict. And if they truly love you, what looked like ignoring was sometimes their desperate attempt not to be consumed by the very thing they wanted most. Scorpio. Scorpio does not ghost in the light way some other signs do. When Scorpio starts ignoring you, it feels heavy, intentional, charged, like there is a secret underneath the silence that nobody is naming. This is because Scorpio does not distance themselves casually. If they pull back when things get serious, it is usually because something deep inside them has been triggered: fear, vulnerability, jealousy, suspicion, emotional exposure, or the terrifying realization that you now have the power to hurt them in ways no stranger ever could. Scorpio is one of the most emotionally intense signs in the zodiac, but intensity does not always mean openness. In fact, the deeper they feel, the more guarded they can become. Early on, Scorpio may seem magnetic, focused, almost hypnotic. They notice everything. They remember your words. They create emotional and physical chemistry that feels unforgettable. When Scorpio wants you, you can feel it without them saying much. But when the relationship starts crossing into truly serious territory, their instincts become more complex. Now it matters. Now they are vulnerable. Now trust is no longer sexy in theory, it is terrifying in practice. Scorpio ignores as a form of self-protection and emotional testing. This is the part people rarely understand. Sometimes when Scorpio withdraws, they are watching, not because they are cruel, but because they need to know what happens when they stop controlling the energy between you. Will you chase and panic? Will you become cold? Will you betray your own feelings? Will you expose yourself honestly? Scorpio often goes silent when they are trying to measure the emotional truth of the connection without openly admitting how much is at stake for them. Their version of ignoring can be deeply unsettling. They may read your message and not answer for hours or days. They may suddenly become emotionally unreadable after incredible intimacy. They may step back right after a moment that should have brought you closer. This is classic Scorpio fear behavior. When they feel too much, they tighten instead of opening. They become private instead of expressive. The heart gets deeper, and the surface gets colder. Can you cope with this? Yes, but only if you stop interpreting every Scorpio silence in a superficial way. Not every withdrawal means they are done, but not every withdrawal should be excused either. The right response is strong emotional self-respect. Do not beg. Do not perform dramatic jealousy. Do not try to manipulate them back with silence games of your own. Scorpio sees through emotional theater instantly. What they respond to most is truth with backbone. Name the shift. Make it clear that connection requires honesty. Then step back and let them choose who they are going to be. If Scorpio truly cares, your steadiness can become the very thing that calms them. They need to feel that seriousness does not automatically lead to betrayal, loss of power, or emotional humiliation. More than almost any other sign on this list, Scorpio needs trust to grow slowly and solidly. Their ignoring is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is armor. Sometimes it is fear wearing a dark expression. And sometimes it is the final trembling resistance of someone who knows that once they let themselves love for real, there will be no shallow way out. Why these signs disappear when love becomes real. The most painful kind of ghosting is not when someone feels nothing. It is when someone feels everything and still cannot stay. That is what links these 5 signs together. Gemini escapes the emotional weight of being pinned down before they are ready. Sagittarius runs when seriousness starts to feel like the death of freedom. Aquarius detaches when feelings threaten their inner control. Pisces fades when love becomes too overwhelming to hold. Scorpio goes silent when vulnerability becomes more dangerous than desire. Each of them ignores differently. One becomes inconsistent. One vanishes into movement. One turns emotion into logic. One drifts into softness and fog. One retreats behind walls and watchful silence. But all of them are trying to solve the same internal crisis: how to remain themselves while being deeply affected by another person. And that is why reacting correctly matters. If someone is withdrawing out of fear rather than indifference, pressure can make the silence worse. But self-erasure is not the answer either. The healthiest response is a difficult balance: warmth without chasing, honesty without interrogation, patience without abandoning your dignity. Do not reward confusion endlessly. Do not become smaller just to keep them near. But do understand that some people need room not because they do not care, but because caring has shaken something loose inside them. The truth is, love does not only reveal tenderness, it reveals defense mechanisms. It reveals childhood fears, hidden panic, old heartbreaks, and the private survival strategies people built long before they met you. When these signs ghost as things get serious, they are often not fighting the relationship alone. They are fighting their own history, their own nervous system, their own fear of what happens if they finally let someone matter too much.